On a frozen Montana highway where the wind carved white scars across black asphalt, Cole Morrison gripped the steering wheel of his old F-250 and watched the world disappear into static. The dashboard clock read 11:42 p.m. January 15th, 18 months since the fire that turned his childhood home into a skeleton of charred timber and his parents into memory. He'd driven this route 100 times as a Porsche, could navigate it blind, but tonight the blizzard had erased every landmark. Only the yellow center line kept him anchored to reality, and even that flickered in and out of existence beneath the accumulating snow. The heater blasted hot air that smelled like dust and old metal. Beside him, Ghost shifted in the passenger seat, a 4-year-old sable German shepherd whose ears tracked sounds Cole's damaged hearing couldn't catch anymore. 12 years as a Navy SEAL had left him with tinnitus and a collection of scars that looked like a roadmap of bad decisions. The dog had been his partner for the last 3 deployments, trained to detect fear and panic and the particular scent of human distress. Right now, Ghost's posture said the storm was just weather, nothing worth alerting over. Cole had been living in the bunkhouse for 3 weeks, ever since he'd finally worked up the courage to return to Morrison Ranch. The main house still stood in ruins, foundation stones blackened, second story collapsed into the first, chimney pointing at the sky like an accusing finger. Insurance had paid out fast, too fast, but he hadn't touched the money. Couldn't bring himself to bulldoze what remained, couldn't bring himself to rebuild. So he lived in the renovated bunkhouse his grandfather had built in 1965, chopping firewood and baking bread and trying to remember how to sleep without nightmares. The truck hit a patch of black ice and fishtailed. Cole corrected without thinking, muscle memory from years of tactical driving. Ghost braced against the door, calm. The wind screamed louder, invisibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. He should pull over, wait it out, but the need to keep moving ran deeper than logic. Motion was control, stillness was where the memories lived. Then Ghost's whole body went rigid. The growl started low in his chest, not the warning bark for animals or weather, but the specific alert for human presence in distress. Combat-trained response. Cole's right hand moved automatically toward the Glock in the center console before his brain caught up. The headlights swept across something that looked wrong, a shadow hunched too low to be a deer, moving too slowly to be anything natural. He eased off the gas, heart rate climbing from 60 to 90 in 2 seconds. Ghost barked once, sharp, and Cole's boot found the brake. Through the whiteout, shapes materialized like something out of a fever dream. A woman thin figure wrapped in a faded shawl that might have been red once but looked brown in the sodium glare of the headlights. Her long black hair plastered to her face by melting frost, skin copper-toned where it wasn't bleached white by cold. She clutched something to her chest, and as Cole's truck rolled closer, he realized it was a bundle wrapped in blankets. An infant. Behind her, 4 more children stumbled through knee-deep snow, the oldest maybe 9, the youngest barely tall enough to see over the drifts. Cole's brain processed everything in the fraction of a second before his boot slammed the brake pedal to the floor. The truck's anti-lock system hammered beneath his foot, and the F-250 slewed sideways, rear end swinging out before the tires caught purchase. Ghost lurched forward against his harness, and Cole threw an arm across the dog's chest on instinct, SEAL training that said, protect your partner first. The dashboard thermometer read minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill had to be pushing minus 40. The woman wore no coat, just a shawl and what looked like 2 threadbare sweaters beneath. The children behind her had thin jackets, no hats, no gloves. Their faces looked gray in the headlights, lips tinged blue, and the smallest one wasn't even shivering anymore. Cole knew what that meant. The body's last surrender before hypothermia took everything. The baby's cry cut through the wind, thin and weak, the sound of a newborn who'd been crying too long. Less than a year old, probably. Maybe 8 months. And the mother holding it had stopped walking. She stood in the middle of the highway, swaying, clutching the infant like the storm might rip it from her arms. Her dark eyes, huge in her face, fixed on Cole's truck with an expression that mixed terror and something harder. Defiance. The look of someone who'd learned to meet danger standing up because running only made it worse. Cole threw the truck into park and stepped out into the slicing wind. The cold hit like a physical blow, stealing breath, finding every gap in his clothing. Ghost moved to follow, but Cole commanded him to stay with a hand signal. The woman's posture shifted immediately, shoulders angling forward, feet planted, despite the snow slipping beneath her boots. Protective stance, prepared to fight or die trying. "Stay back!" Her voice barely carried over the wind, but the words came clear enough. One hand moved beneath the shawl, and Cole's training cataloged the motion. Weapon, probably a knife, judging by the angle of her wrist. Smart. Desperate people with weapons were the most dangerous kind. He raised both hands slowly, palms open, arms spread wide, deliberately non-threatening. "Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you, but those children need shelter. So do you. You've got maybe 30 minutes before hypothermia becomes irreversible." "We're fine," the lie cracked in her throat. "Just let us pass." "You're not fine." Cole kept his voice level, the same tone he'd used for hostage negotiations in Kandahar. "Look at the baby. She stopped crying. That's not good. And the little one behind you," he nodded toward the smallest child, a boy, maybe 3 years old. "He's not shivering. That's stage 2 hypothermia. His core temperature's dropping. We need to get him warm now or he's going to die." The woman's face twisted, anguish breaking through the defiance. She looked back at her children, and in that moment of distraction, the smallest boy's legs buckled. He went down hard, face first into the snow, and didn't move. "Jackson!" The woman's scream tore through the night. The oldest girl, 9 or 10, lunged forward to grab her brother, but her hands were too numb. She fell beside him, sobbing. Cole moved without thinking. Muscle memory from 8 years as a combat medic, before the SEALs, before the wars that taught him how to kill instead of save. He crossed the distance in 4 strides, dropped to his knees beside the collapsed child, pulled off his glove, pressed fingers to the boy's throat. Pulse present but thready, maybe 60 beats per minute. Respiration shallow, skin ice cold and waxy, stage 2 sliding towards stage 3. "I'm a medic." He looked up at the woman, made sure she saw his face, his intent. "Former Navy. I can help him, but we need to move now. My ranch is 8 miles ahead. Heated house, medical supplies, everything he needs." The woman's mouth opened, but before she could speak, Ghost barked, not the alert bark from before. The warning bark, danger approaching. Cole's head snapped around, and through the snow, he saw them. Headlights, 200 yards back and closing. Black SUV, no snow on the hood, which meant it had been moving recently. Hunting. "They found us." The woman's voice went flat, dead. "He sent them." Cole didn't ask who he was, didn't matter. The boy in the snow mattered. The infant still clutched to the woman's viral chest mattered. The 3 other children, wide-eyed and shaking, mattered. Everything else was just tactical problems, and he'd spent 12 years solving those. "Get in the truck." He scooped the unconscious boy into his arms, stood, started moving. "Everyone now, back seat, hurry." "They'll follow us." The woman didn't move. "They'll find where you live. You'll be in danger." "I've been in danger before." Cole looked at her, let her see the truth in his eyes. "Those men, or me, you've got 5 seconds to choose." The black SUV was 100 yards away now, accelerating. The woman's gaze went from Cole to the vehicle to her children, calculation happening faster than thought. Then she broke. "Lily, get your sister and brother in the truck. Move, baby, move." The oldest girl, Lily, grabbed the hands of 2 smaller children and ran for the F-250. Cole had the unconscious boy in his arms, was already opening the rear door, laying him across the bench seat. The woman climbed in after, still holding the infant, and the other 3 children piled in on top of each other. Ghost barked again, urgent now, and Cole slammed the door. He hit the driver's seat as the black SUV's headlights filled his mirrors. 50 yards, engine roaring, closing fast. Cole's hand moved to the shifter, and something in his brain that hadn't activated since Afghanistan came online. Not rage, not fear, just cold tactical assessment. The enemy was behind him. He had civilians to protect. The mission parameters were clear. The F-250's tires spun for half a second before catching, and then they were moving. Cole didn't gun it, didn't try to race. In these conditions, speed killed, control mattered. He let the truck find its rhythm, felt the way the snow wanted to pull them sideways, adjusted steering and throttle accordingly. The black SUV behind them had no such patience. It surged forward, engine screaming, and Cole watched in the mirror as its driver overcorrected on a turn and the vehicle slewed sideways. Hold on. He took the next curve at 35, faster than safe but not suicidal. The truck's rear end kicked out and he caught it. Feathered the wound, kept them moving. Behind him, the SUV recovered, but it had lost 50 yards. Amateur driver. All aggression, no finesse. Cole had driven in worse conditions under enemy fire. This was just Montana. In the back seat, the woman was doing something with the unconscious boy. Cole risked a glance in the rear view. She had the child's wet jacket off, was wrapping him in her shawl, rubbing his arms and chest, trying to generate warmth through friction. Not bad. Not optimal, but not bad. There's an emergency blanket under the passenger seat. Cole kept his eyes on the road, hands light on the wheel. Silver Mylar, wrap him in that over the shawl, and there's a thermos of coffee in the center console. Hot, lots of sugar. Get some in him if he wakes up. The oldest girl, Lily, reached forward, found the blanket, passed it back. Cole's peripheral vision caught the woman's profile as she worked, jaw set, movements precise despite the shaking in her hands. Survivor. Someone who'd practiced staying functional when everything went to hell. He knew the type. He saw her in the mirror every morning. The highway curved east, and Cole took them off onto a county road that wasn't on most GPS systems. The black SUV followed for another mile, then its headlights vanished. Either they'd given up or they'd slid off into a ditch. Cole didn't slow down to check. Is he one of them? The oldest girl's voice, small and scared from the back seat. Is this man bad too? I don't know, baby. The woman's voice cracked on the last word. I don't know anymore. Cole drove in silence, focused on keeping them alive. The county road became a ranch road, gravel buried under snow, and then they were through the gate that said Morrison Ranch, established 1902, and the burned house rose out of the darkness like a monument to everything he'd lost. But the bunkhouse lights were on, glowing warm through the storm, and smoke rose from the chimney. He parked as close to the door as possible, killed the engine, and the sudden absence of noise felt like pressure in his ears. I'm going to carry your son inside. Cole turned in his seat, met the woman's eyes. You bring the others. There's a fire going, beds, food, everything you need, okay? She stared at him for 3 long seconds, searching for lies. Then she nodded once. The boy weighed maybe 40 pounds, all bone and not enough meat. Cole cradled him against his chest and ran for the bunkhouse door, Ghost at his heels. Inside, the heat hit like a wall after the storm's cold, and Cole went straight to the couch nearest the wood stove, laid the boy down, started stripping the remaining wet clothes. The child's skin had no color, lips gray-blue, and his breathing came too shallow and too slow. The woman crowded in behind him, still holding the infant, the other 3 children pressing close. Cole didn't look up, kept working. Dry blankets from the closet layered over the boy, hot water bottle from the kitchen wrapped in a towel placed against his core. Not directly on skin, too much heat shock, but close enough to start warming the blood flowing to vital organs. Is he going to die? The middle girl, maybe 5 years old, big eyes swimming with tears. No. Cole checked the boy's pulse again. 55 beats per minute, still dropping. But he's going to need help. His name's Jackson? Yes. The woman's voice barely made it past her throat. Jackson David Whitehorse, 7 years old. He's 7. Jackson. Cole leaned close to the boy's face, spoke directly into his ear. Jackson, you're safe now. You're warm. I need you to wake up and show me those eyes, okay? Your mom needs to see you're all right. Can you do that for her? Nothing. The boy's chest rose and fell, mechanical, body conserving energy for the fight to stay alive. Cole stood, moved to the kitchen, filled a pot with water, set it on the stove. Not boiling. Body temperature. He added sugar, salt, honey, oral rehydration solution, field medic version. If Jackson woke up, he'd need fluids and electrolytes fast. Behind him, Ghost moved among the other children, letting them touch his fur, leaning into their hands. Therapy dog behavior, something they'd trained for after the last deployment, when Cole's therapist suggested it might help with the nightmares. The children responded instinctively, drawn to the warmth and solidity of the animal. Even the 3-year-old stopped crying, just buried his face in Ghost's neck. "What's the baby's name?" Cole kept his tone conversational, trying to pull the woman back from the edge of panic he could see building in her shoulders. "Emma." The woman looked down at the infant in her arms. 8 months. She hasn't eaten since morning. There's formula in the pantry, bottles in the cabinet above the sink, leftover from when my sister visited with her kids last year. A lie, he'd never had a sister. But the woman needed to believe this place was safe, normal, the kind of home where families visited and life continued. "Water's in the kettle, already heated. Help yourself." The woman didn't move, just stood there holding her baby, shaking, not from cold anymore. From shock, from the realization that they'd stopped running, that the motion that kept panic at bay had ceased, and now there was nothing between her and the terror she'd been outpacing. Cole recognized the moment. He'd lived it himself the first night after medical discharge when he'd tried to sleep in his apartment and realized the war was over, but his body hadn't gotten the message. The stillness was harder than the chaos. "You're safe here." He met her eyes, let her see the promise in them. "I don't know your story yet. Don't need to. What I know is you walked through a blizzard with 5 children because staying wherever you were felt more dangerous than dying. That tells me enough. So right now, you feed your baby. I'll watch Jackson. And when everyone's stable, we'll figure out the rest." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Why are you helping us?" Cole thought about that question. Thought about Kabul and the mission that ended his career, the translator's family he'd failed to save, the way the little girl's hand had gone cold in his while he'd tried to stop the bleeding. Thought about coming home to find his parents dead and the ranch half destroyed and the crushing weight of too late, always too late. Because someone should have helped you sooner. The words came out rougher than he intended. And because I'm tired of being too late. Something shifted in the woman's face. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. She moved to the kitchen, started preparing the formula with shaking hands. The oldest girl, Lily, helped her, reaching for bottles, testing water temperature, moving with the practiced efficiency of a child who'd been parentified too young. The 5-year-old girl sat next to Jackson on the couch, holding his hand. The 3-year-old boy stayed attached to Ghost. And Cole stood in the middle of his bunkhouse, surrounded by strangers he'd pulled from death's door, and felt something he hadn't felt in 18 months. Purpose. Jackson's eyelids fluttered at the 15-minute mark. Cole was beside him immediately, hand on the boy's forehead. "Hey there, welcome back." "Mama?" The word came out slurred, confused. "Right here, baby." The woman set down the bottle she'd been preparing for Emma, crossed to the couch in 2 strides. "I'm here. You're okay." "Cold." Jackson's voice cracked. "So cold." "I know, but you're warming up. Can you drink something for me?" Cole held up the warm sugar water. "Just a little. It'll help." Jackson managed 3 sips before exhaustion dragged him under again. But his color looked better, less gray, and his breathing had deepened. His core temperature was rising. Another hour and he'd be out of danger. Cole checked the other children systematically. The oldest girl showed early signs of frostbite on 3 fingers. Red, slightly swollen, painful when he touched them gently. He wrapped them, elevated her hand, explained she'd need to keep them warm, but not hot. The 5-year-old had no major issues, just exhaustion and hunger. The 3-year-old clung to his mother when she'd finished feeding the baby, wouldn't let go, and Cole recognized trauma response. That child had seen things. They all had. The baby, Emma, drank 4 ounces of formula and fell asleep mid-bottle. The woman held her, swaying slightly, eyes distant. Shell shock. Cole had seen it in combat, the way people functioned through crisis and then came apart when the threat passed. There are 2 bedrooms and back. He kept his voice soft, non-threatening. Fresh sheets on both beds. Bathroom between them. Hot water in the tank. You and the kids take them. I'll sleep out here on the couch. Keep the fire going. Where will you really sleep? The oldest girl, Lily, watched him with eyes too old for her face. The workshop, through that door. Cole pointed to the side entrance. Separate building 10 yards away. Ghost usually sleeps there with me. You're leaving? Panic flared in the girl's voice. No, I'm giving you space, privacy. The keys to my truck are on that hook by the door. Satellite phone is on the kitchen table. You can call anyone you want, or you can drive away tonight if that feels safer. But I'm not leaving the property, and neither is Ghost unless you want him to. The woman's head came up. You're just letting us have your truck? Your phone? You need them more than I do. And if I wanted to hurt you, I'd have done it already. Cole held her gaze. I don't know your name, don't know where you came from or what you're running from. But I know what it looks like when someone's terrified and has nowhere left to go. So I'm giving you options. That's all. Just options. The silence stretched long enough that Cole wondered if he'd miscalculated. Then the woman spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Elena, Elena Whitehorse. Cole Morrison. He nodded once. This is my family's ranch. Has been for 4 generations. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. Elena looked at her children, then back at Cole. The men in the SUV, they'll come looking. Let them. Cole's voice hardened. This is private property. Montana law says I can defend it, and I'm real good at defending things. Something like hope flickered across Elena's face, there and gone in a heartbeat. She looked down at the sleeping infant in her arms, then at Jackson breathing steadily on the couch and the other 3 children starting to nod off where they sat. The fight drained out of her shoulders, and what remained looked like surrender. The good kind, the kind that meant she could finally stop carrying everything alone. Thank you. The words broke on the way out. Cole just nodded. He helped settle the children into the back bedrooms, carry Jackson since the boy was still too weak to walk, showed Elena where the extra blankets were, how the bathroom heater worked, where he kept first aid supplies. Set out clean clothes for morning. His own shirts and sweats would swallow her, but they'd be warm. When everyone was settled, Cole headed for the workshop through the connecting door. Ghost followed, then paused, looked back at the bunkhouse. The dog's ears swiveled toward the sound of children's breathing, and Cole could see him calculating. Pack dynamics. These were vulnerable members who needed guarding. Go ahead. Cole released him from duty, but gentle. They're scared enough already. Ghost trotted back to the bunkhouse, and through the window, Cole watched him settle on the floor between the 2-bedroom doors. Sentry position. The dog knew his job. The workshop was cold, and Cole didn't bother lighting the wood stove. He'd spent worse nights in worse places. He pulled out his father's old crib from the storage corner, the one he'd been rebuilding, and stared at the half-finished joints. Tomorrow he'd need to finish it. Emma needed somewhere safer to sleep than a makeshift bassinet. His hands found sandpaper automatically, started smoothing rough edges. The repetitive motion helped quiet his brain, the way it always did. Work was meditation. Work was control. Work was the opposite of lying awake counting all the ways he'd failed. But tonight, the usual spiral didn't come. Instead, his mind kept circling back to Elena's face when she'd said thank you, the way her voice had broken like something long cracked, finally splitting clean through. He'd heard that sound before, in Kandahar, in the translator's wife's voice when she'd realized they weren't going to make the extraction point in time. The sound of hope dying. Except Elena's hope hadn't died. It had just been bidden down so far, she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone offer help without expecting payment in flesh or fear. Cole sanded the crib rails smooth, tested the joints, found them solid. His father had built this crib in 1989 when Cole was born. Used Montana pine and old-school joinery techniques, no screws, just wood and precision and time. 3 generations had slept in it. It deserved to see a 4th, even if that 4th wasn't blood. The workshop door opened, and Cole's hand moved toward the Glock on his workbench before his brain registered Elena's silhouette. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in one of his flannel shirts over her wet clothes, looking smaller than she had on the highway. Breakable. Except her eyes said she'd been broken before and learned how to keep standing anyway. Can't sleep? Cole set down the sandpaper, kept his hands visible. Jackson's fever broke. He woke up asking for water. Elena stepped inside, hugging herself against the cold. I wanted to thank you again. Properly. You saved his life. You saved his life. You kept him moving when stopping meant death. I just provided the last piece. Cole gestured to the crib. This is for Emma. Should be done by morning. Elena moved closer, ran her hand over the smooth wood. It's beautiful. Old-fashioned. My father made it, said modern cribs were overpriced plastic garbage. Cole smiled despite himself. He wasn't wrong. You talk about him past tense. Not a question. Fire took the house 18 months ago. Both my parents were inside. The words came easier than they used to. I was deployed, wasn't here to help. Elena's breath caught. I'm sorry. Me too. Cole picked up the sandpaper again, needing something to do with his hands. Came back 3 weeks ago, first time since the funeral. Can't bring myself to bulldoze the ruins yet. Can't bring myself to rebuild, so I'm stuck in between. Stuck in. I know that place. Elena's voice went soft. The stuck place. Where moving forward feels like betrayal and standing still feels like drowning. Cole looked up, met her eyes, and saw a recognition there. The kind that came from walking the same path through hell, just on different schedules. Your husband, how long has he been gone? 6 months. Elena's hand tightened on the crib rail. Single vehicle accident. Drove off Canyon Ridge Road doing 80 miles an hour, drunk. They say he died on impact. They say, Cole caught the emphasis. But you don't believe it. Elena's jaw tightened. I believe he was drunk. I believe he was doing 80. I don't believe it was an accident. The air between them shifted, charged with the weight of words unsaid. Cole set down the sandpaper, gave her his full attention. You think someone killed him? I know someone killed him. I just can't prove it yet. Elena reached into the pocket of his borrowed flannel shirt, pulled out something wrapped in plastic. This is why I was running, why those men were chasing us, why I'd rather freeze to death than go back. She unwrapped the plastic, revealed a leather journal, worn and water-stained, held it out to Cole. He took it carefully, opened to a random page. The handwriting was masculine, precise, almost military in its straight lines. Dates marked each entry: February 12, 2023, March 3, 2023, April 15, 2023. And beside the dates, notes, names, dollar amounts, property descriptions. Cole's blood turned cold when he read the March 3rd entry. Morrison house fire. Dad says problem solved. Don't want details. His head snapped up. Your husband wrote this? Travis Whitehorse, Army 10th Mountain Division. 2 tours in Iraq. Came home with PTSD and used it to excuse every terrible thing he did. Elena's voice stayed flat, clinical. His father is Judge Robert Whitehorse. 3 counties, 3 decades of rulings, more power than God in these parts. And Travis was his accomplice in more than just assault. Cole flipped through more pages, speed-reading entries that made his stomach clench. Land deals, shell companies, rezoning schemes. And there, repeatedly, Morrison Ranch, his family's property. The place 4 generations had called home, detailed in a dead man's journal like it was just another transaction. He mentions my parents. Cole's voice came out wrong, too tight. Multiple times. February they started. Pressure to sell, offers through development companies. Your father refused. Elena moved closer, pointed to an entry. March 3rd, the fire. Travis writes like it's just business, like murder is just problem solving. Cole's hands shook. He set the journal down before he tore it. My father called me 3 weeks before he died. Said people were pressuring him to sell. Development company backed by local investors, offering twice market value. He laughed about it, said Morrison land wasn't for sale at any price. I told him to get security cameras, better locks. He said he'd be fine. He wasn't fine. Elena's hand touched his arm, light, there and gone. Because Judge Whitehorse doesn't take no for an answer, and your ranch is apparently the key to something worth killing for. Cole looked up, met her eyes. You figured this out. That's why you ran. Travis drank himself stupid 2 weeks before he died, left his truck unlocked. I found the journal hidden under the driver's seat, wrapped in plastic like he knew it was evidence. Elena's voice dropped. I read it all, realized my husband wasn't just a monster at home. He was a monster in the world, and his father was worse. Why didn't you go to the police? Even as Cole asked, he knew the answer. Because Judge Whitehorse controls the police. Because I called them 4 times over 6 years and the reports disappeared. Because I have 5 children and no money and no power, and powerful men don't go to jail when poor Native women accuse them. Elena's eyes glittered, rage and grief mixing. So I kept the journal, hid it, waited. For what? For Travis to get sober enough to hear me. For him to realize what his father made him do. For some kind of miracle that would let me leave safely. Elena laughed bitter. Then he got in his truck drunk, called me screaming that I'd stolen his property, meaning the kids, and said he was coming to take them back. I heard the crash on the phone. Heard him die. Cole's jaw clenched. You don't sound sorry. I'm not. Elena's voice didn't waver. I'm relieved. Every day I wake up and he's still dead is a gift. Does that make me a bad person? No, Cole met her eyes. It makes you a survivor, and survivors do what's necessary. They stood in silence, the workshop cold around them, the journal between them like a bomb waiting to detonate. Cole's mind raced through implications. His parents' deaths weren't accidental. They were murdered, and the man who'd ordered it, Judge Robert Whitehorse, was still walking free, still wielding power, still destroying lives to expand his empire. The custody fight. Cole put the pieces together. Judge Whitehorse wants the children, not because he loves them, because you have this journal. He doesn't know I have it yet, but he suspects Travis kept records, and he knows I'll do anything to protect my kids. Elena's voice cracked. He filed for emergency custody 2 weeks after Travis died. Said I was unstable, unfit. That grief made me dangerous. Court date was 3 days ago. I ran instead. So he sent men after you. Private investigators, ex-cops, people who don't mind breaking laws for the right price. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. I thought we could disappear. Grandmother on the reservation, friends in other states, somewhere beyond his reach. Then my truck ran out of gas 30 miles back, and we started walking. I thought we'd make it to the reservation before the storm hit. I was wrong. Cole looked out the workshop window toward the burned skeleton of his family home. 4 generations of Morrisons had lived there, worked the land, raised children, built something solid from Montana stone and timber. And Judge Robert Whitehorse had reduced it to ash because his land scheme required the right property lines. We find proof. Cole's voice came out hard, certain. Real proof, enough that even a judge can't bury it. How? Elena's laugh held no humor. This journal proves Travis knew. Doesn't prove his father ordered anything. Doesn't prove the fire was arson. Doesn't make me a fit mother or you a safe guardian. My father was an engineer, careful, methodical. If he suspected foul play, he'd have documented it. Cole moved to the window, stared at the burned house. He called me 4 times in those last 3 weeks. Never said anything directly, didn't want to worry me while I was deployed. But he mentioned weird things, said he was putting important papers somewhere safe, said if anything happened, I should look where the old creek ran. Elena frowned. What does that mean? I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Cole turned back to her. Tomorrow, we search the property, and we find whatever my father left behind. They'll come looking for us, the men from tonight. Let them. Cole's voice turned cold, the SEAL operator surfacing. This is defensible terrain. I know every inch of this property. They don't, and Montana law says I can protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Elena's chin came up. Neither are my children. No, but you're under my protection now. That makes you mine to defend. Cole held her gaze. Unless you want to leave, keys are on the hook. I meant what I said. Elena stared at him for a long moment, searching for the lie, the angle, the hidden price. Cole knew she wouldn't find it because there wasn't one. He was done failing people, done being too late. If helping Elena and her children was the only redemption available, he'd take it. We stay, Elena's voice steadied, until we have proof, until we can fight back. Then we'll see. Fair enough. Cole extended his hand. Partners? Elena looked at his hand, then up at his face, reading intentions in the lines around his eyes. Whatever she saw there made her decision. Her hand met his, grip firm despite the tremor. Partners. The word hung between them, heavy with implication and the beginning of something neither was ready to name. Trust, maybe, or just shared desperation, two drowning people clinging to the same piece of wreckage. Either way, it was enough to start with. Elena left for the bunkhouse and Cole returned to the crib. His hands moved automatically, sanding and fitting joints, but his mind was elsewhere. Planning, strategizing. His father's words echoed, "Look where the old creek ran." The original creek bed had been diverted in 1955 when they'd put in the well system. It ran east of the main house, through what was now just scrubland, unless it ran under something, through something hidden. The old well house, built 1902, same year as the main house. Stone construction, 8 feet by 8 feet, wooden door. Cole hadn't been inside since he was a kid, playing hide and seek with cousins. The well hadn't had water since the county put in municipal lines in 1965. So why maintain the building? Why keep it locked? Because David Morrison, careful engineer, methodical planner, would want a place nobody thought to look. Somewhere old enough to blend into the landscape. Somewhere protected from fire. Underground. Cole set down the finished crib rail, decision made. Tomorrow they'd search. And tomorrow, one way or another, they'd find the truth his father had died protecting. Outside, the blizzard finally broke. Stars appeared between shredding clouds, and the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Inside the bunkhouse, 5 children slept warm and safe for the first time in days, and one exhausted mother finally let herself close her eyes. In the workshop, one former SEAL finished building a crib for a baby who wasn't his and wondered if redemption always arrived wrapped in chaos. Maybe that was the only way it came. Maybe Grace looked like strangers on frozen highways and burned houses that refused to surrender their secrets. Maybe healing started not with forgetting, but with fighting back. Cole looked at his father's journal, at Elena's husband's journal, at 2 different records of the same conspiracy. 2 families destroyed by one man's greed. But that man didn't know something important. He didn't know that some people, once they've lost everything, become dangerous precisely because they've got nothing left to lose. And he didn't know that Navy SEALs specialized in impossible odds. Tomorrow the search would begin. Tomorrow they'd find what David Morrison had hidden. And tomorrow Judge Robert Whitehorse would discover that murder had consequences, even when you thought you'd buried them deep enough to stay hidden. Some winters were just the earth sleeping, but some winters were the earth gathering strength for spring. Cole Morrison intended to make damn sure this was the second kind. Dawn broke over Morrison Ranch with the kind of clarity that only came after blizzards. The sky scrubbed blue, and the snow reflecting light so bright it hurt to look at. Cole had been awake since 4, finishing the crib, testing each joint twice because perfectionism kept the nightmares at bay. Ghost pushed through the workshop door at 6, which meant someone in the bunkhouse was stirring. Cole found Elena in the kitchen, already dressed in his borrowed clothes that hung off her frame like she was a child playing dress-up. She had coffee brewing and was staring at the burned house through the window with an expression that mixed exhaustion and determination in equal measure. Couldn't sleep? Cole poured himself a cup, noticed her hands were steadier than last night. Jackson woke up 3 times. Fever dreams. He kept asking if the bad men found us. Elena didn't look away from the window. I told him we were safe. I don't know if I was lying. You weren't. Cole moved beside her, followed her gaze to the skeletal remains of his childhood. Those men don't know this property, don't know the terrain, and they don't know that a SEAL team's primary advantage is preparation and local knowledge. Elena's mouth twitched, almost a smile. You're treating this like a military operation. Because it is one. Objective, find evidence. Secondary objective, protect civilians. Tertiary objective, survive long enough to deploy evidence effectively. Cole sipped his coffee, black and strong enough to strip paint. Strategy beats panic every time. What if there's nothing to find? What if your father didn't hide anything? Then we build a case with what we have. Travis's journal, your testimony, hospital records from when he hurt you. Cole's voice hardened on the last part. But my father wasn't the type to die quietly. He'd have left something. Footsteps on the stairs announced children waking. Lily appeared first, hair tangled, eyes alert despite the early hour. She'd positioned herself between the stairs and the front door, Cole noticed. Protective stance, same as her mother. That girl had been playing soldier in her own home for too long. Is it safe to go outside? Lily's question came direct, no preamble. In daylight with me? Yes. Alone? No. Cole appreciated her bluntness. Your mom tells me you're 9. That old enough to follow tactical instructions? Lily straightened, sensing the respect in his tone. Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old. Cole works fine. He set down his coffee. Rule 1, you see vehicles approaching that aren't mine or Frank's. He's the neighbor, white beard, drives a blue Chevy. You get your siblings inside immediately and tell your mom or me. Rule 2, you don't open the door for anyone except people I've cleared. Rule 3, and if shooting starts, you go to the basement through the trap door under the kitchen table and you stay there until someone you trust comes to get you. Understood? Lily absorbed this without blinking. What if mom and you are both hurt? Then you call 911, give them this address, and you stay hidden with your siblings until help arrives. Cole pulled out his satellite phone, programmed in emergency numbers, handed it to her. This doesn't need cell signal. Works anywhere. Can you handle that responsibility? Yes. Lily took the phone like it was a weapon, which in a way it was. Information and communication. Force multipliers. Elena watched this exchange with something unreadable crossing her face. She's 9 years old. I was 9 when my father taught me to shoot. 12 when he taught me land navigation. 14 when he explained how to serve everything went wrong. Cole met Elena's eyes. I'm not trying to scare her. I'm trying to prepare her. There's a difference. My husband said the same thing when he taught her to lie to social workers. Elena's voice went cold. I'm not your husband. Cole held her gaze, and I'm teaching her to protect herself and her siblings, not to protect a monster. But if you don't want me training her, say so now. The kitchen went silent except for the coffee maker's gurgle. Lily looked between the adults, tension reading loud in her shoulders. Then Elena exhaled, long and slow. Teach her. Teach all of them. But you teach them to survive, not to accept violence as normal. Her eyes drilled into Cole. And if you ever make them feel unsafe, we're gone, partners or not. Deal. Cole turned back to Lily. Your brothers and sister up? Jackson's still sleeping. Sophie and Daniel are getting dressed. Emma's awake but not crying. Good. When everyone's ready, we're going to explore the property. I need your eyes. Kids notice things adults miss. Cole grabbed his jacket. Your mom and I are looking for something my father hid. I think you're going to help us find it. Breakfast was eggs and toast and the last of the venison sausage Cole had made the week before. Jackson came down pale but walking, and Cole checked him over with clinical efficiency. Temperature normal, color improved, no signs of lasting damage. The kid was tougher than he looked, or maybe just used to pushing through pain. Either way, bad sign about his childhood. Sophie chattered through the meal, questions tumbling out faster than anyone could answer. What happened to the house? Why did it burn? Did everyone get out? Are there ghosts? Can ghosts really understand English? Daniel ate in silence, pressed against his mother's side, watching Cole with eyes that expected violence. And Emma gummed a teething biscuit, oblivious to the tension threading through every adult interaction. All right, team. Cole stood, started clearing plates. We've got a mission today. Need everyone's help, even you, Daniel. The 3-year-old's eyes went wide. He shook his head, burrowing deeper into Elena's embrace. It's okay. Cole crouched to the boy's level, kept his distance. You don't have to help if you don't want to, but if you come with us, you get to meet the chickens. They're loud and silly, and they lay eggs we can eat. You like eggs, right? Daniel nodded slowly. Then maybe you can help me collect eggs later, only if you want to. Cole stood, gave the kid space. Pressure created resistance. Invitation created curiosity. Psychology worked the same whether you were negotiating with hostile forces or traumatized children. They bundled up in whatever cold weather gear Cole could scavenge. His old jackets, extra blankets as shawls, plastic bags over shoes for waterproofing. The group that emerged from the bunkhouse looked like refugees from some disaster zone, which wasn't far from the truth. The burned house loomed larger in daylight, and Cole felt the familiar punch of grief seeing it fresh. Stone foundation blackened but intact. First floor walls partially standing, second floor completely collapsed. The chimney rose from the wreckage like a gravestone, red brick stained with soot, refusing to fall even though everything around it had surrendered. "It's sad," Sophie's small voice carried in the cold air. "It looks like it's crying." "Houses don't cry, dummy." Lily's snap came defensive, protecting herself from feeling too much. "Lily," Elena's tone held warning. "Sophie's right, though." Cole approached the ruins slowly, ghost at his heels. "It does look sad. My great-grandfather built this house in 1902. 3 generations lived here, raised families, celebrated holidays. This place held a lot of love. Losing that hurts." "Is that why you didn't fix it?" Jackson spoke up, stronger today but still fragile. "Yeah, felt like fixing it would be admitting they're really gone." Cole stopped at the foundation edge, stared at the destruction his father had died in. But leaving it broken doesn't bring them back either. So maybe it's time to figure out what comes next. The children spread out along the foundation perimeter, careful not to cross into the wreckage. Cole had warned them about nails and unstable beams, and they listened. Survival instinct made for obedient students. Lily gravitated toward the chimney, standing at the base where it met the foundation. Cole watched her trace the mortar lines with her eyes, mapping patterns the way kids did when they were looking for order in chaos. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice held question marks. "Why's this stone different?" Cole crossed to her, followed her pointing finger. The chimney base connected to the foundation through a series of large stones, original construction from 1902. Most were Montana granite, gray and weathered. But one stone, about 18 inches square, showed lighter coloring. Sandstone maybe, different source material. "Good eye." Cole crouched beside her, "and that's not original stonework. Someone replaced it." "Why?" Lily reached out, touched the stone, and it shifted slightly under her hand. "It's loose." Cole's pulse kicked up. He pulled off his gloves, worked his fingers around the stone's edges, felt the way it sat in the mortar, barely seated, held by friction rather than cement. He pulled, and the stone came free with a grinding sound that echoed off the mountains. Behind the stone, a hollow space in the chimney foundation. And inside that space, wrapped in oilcloth, a metal box. "Stay back." Cole lifted the box out carefully, checked for wires or triggers. Old habit from too many improvised explosives. Nothing, just a fireproof document box, dented but sealed. He carried it away from the ruins, set it on clear ground, and opened the clasps. Inside, protected from fire and time, a leather journal, land survey documents, photographs, and a handwritten letter on top. Cole recognized his father's precise engineer's handwriting before he read the words. "Cole, if you're reading this, something happened to us. Don't trust Whitehorse. The truth is buried where the old creek ran." "Dad," Elena read over his shoulder, her breath catching. He knew. He knew they'd come for him. Cole flipped through the journal, speed-reading entries that painted a picture of methodical investigation. David Morrison documenting every suspicious contact, every pressure tactic, every veiled threat. Photographs of Judge Whitehorse meeting with development company representatives. Recorded conversations. Cassette tapes carefully labeled by date. Land surveys showing property boundaries and mineral rights. And geological reports that made Cole's blood run cold. "Gold." His voice came out flat. "The property has gold deposits, $75 million worth, according to this 2022 survey." Elena grabbed the report, scanned it. "That's why they wanted it, not just for development, for extraction rights." "My father refused to sell, wouldn't even discuss it." Cole found the entry dated February 15th, 2023. He writes, "Whitehorse sent proxy buyer today. Offered 3 times property value. I said no. Land stays in the family. He said I was making a mistake." Sounded like a threat. The next entries detailed escalating pressure. Phone calls at odd hours, drive-by inspections from county officials citing code violations, anonymous letters suggesting accidents happened to stubborn people. And then, March 3rd, 2023, the journal stopped. The fire was March 3rd. Cole's hands wanted to shake, but he forced them steady. They killed him before he could take this to authorities. Why didn't he go to police sooner? Elena's question came gentle. Because Whitehorse owns the police. Same reason you couldn't get help. Cole looked up at her. My father knew that. He was building a federal case, needed evidence that couldn't be buried by local corruption. And he hid it where the old creek ran. Elena looked around the property. Where's that? Cole stood, oriented himself by the mountain peaks. Original creek bed ran east of the house before they diverted it in the 50s, when they put in the well system. His eyes tracked across the snow-covered landscape, stopping on a stone structure 100 yards away. The well house. That's where the old creek ran. Under the well was mom. They moved as a group, children caught up in the mystery, despite not fully understanding the stakes. The well house stood 8 feet square, stone construction matching the ruined house, heavy wooden doors secured with a padlock. Cole retrieved bolt cutters from his workshop, snapped the lock, pushed the door open. Inside, dust motes swirled in the dim light. The old hand crank well took up the center, surrounded by stone walls and a packed dirt floor. Tools hung from pegs, shovels, picks, rope. Everything looked exactly as Cole remembered from childhood games of hide and seek. Appears empty. Elena's disappointment colored her words. Wait. Cole moved to the well, peered down into darkness. This well hasn't had water since 1965. County put in municipal lines. So why maintain this building? A truck engine sounded in the distance, growing closer. Ghost barked once, alert but not alarm. Cole stepped outside, saw Frank Hewitt's blue Chevy rumbling up the drive. The old man climbed out, white beard catching snow glare, weathered face creasing into concern when he saw the group gathered. Cole Morrison heard someone was poking around the property. Came to check you weren't vandals. Frank, Cole extended his hand, felt the grip that came from 70 years of hard living. Good timing. Was about to call you. Frank's eyes swept over Elena and the children, reading the situation with the ease of someone who'd seen every variation of human trouble. And who might this be? Family in need of sanctuary. Cole kept it simple. Frank Hewitt, meet Elena Whitehorse and her children. They're staying with me for a while. Recognition flickered across Frank's face at the name Whitehorse, but he just nodded. Ma'am, children, welcome to the neighborhood, such as it is out here. He turned back to Cole. Your daddy and I were friends 40 years. What can I do for you, son? Tell me what you know about this well house. Cole gestured to the open door. Frank's expression shifted, memory and something else. Caution, maybe, entering his eyes. Your daddy asked me about that building 3 weeks before the fire. We had beers on my porch. He was agitated. Said strange things were happening. People pressuring him to sell. I told him to call the state attorney general, and he said he would. But first he needed to secure something important. What did he need to secure? Elena stepped forward. Frank studied her, making calculations behind those sharp eyes. He said if anything happened to him, I should tell Cole the answer flows underground. Those exact words didn't make sense to me then. Makes sense now. Cole moved back into the well house, examined the walls more carefully. Frank and Elena followed, leaving Lily to watch the younger children outside. The 3 adults searched in silence, hands running over stones, checking for loose masonry, testing the dirt floor for hollow spots. Ghost paced the perimeter, nose working, and stopped at the northwest corner. Sat, alert. Good boy. Cole moved to where the dog indicated, pressed his hands against the stone wall. It sounded different here. Hollow behind the surface. He knocked along the wall until he found it. An iron ring, recessed into the mortar, barely visible under years of dust. Frank saw at the same moment. I'll be damned, a door. They pulled together, stone scraping against stone, as a section of wall swung inward on hidden hinges. Behind it, stairs descended into darkness. Cool air flowed up from below, carrying the smell of dry earth and old paper. Cole retrieved flashlights from his truck. Descended first, weapon drawn despite knowing his father wouldn't have booby-trapped his own cache. The stairs were solid, carved into bedrock, leading down 12 feet to a chamber that shouldn't exist. The underground room measured 12 by 12, stone walls and floor, ceiling supported by timber beams, that looked original to 1902. Along one wall, wooden filing cabinets. Along another, metal document boxes. And on the walls, photographs pinned in neat rows showing property boundaries, meeting locations, faces Cole didn't recognize, but assumed were part of Whitehorse's operation. Jesus Christ, Frank breathed the words like a prayer. Your daddy built himself an intelligence vault. Elena came down the stairs, leaving the children above with strict orders to stay put. She moved immediately to the filing cabinets, started pulling drawers. Inside, manila folders organized by date, each containing documentation of Judge Whitehorse's land scheme going back 30 years. Cole found the cassette tapes, dozens of them, carefully labeled. Recorded conversations between David Morrison and various parties. Some were phone calls, others were in-person meetings where his father had worn a wire, documenting threats and offers and the slow escalation from business proposition to murder conspiracy. This is it. Elena held up a folder marked Morrison Land Fraud, Federal Evidence. Inside, legal documents showing shell companies purchasing adjacent properties, all traced back to corporations controlled by Whitehorse family interests. This is everything we need. Frank pulled out another box, whistled low. Original fire investigation report, before it was amended, shows clear evidence of arson, accelerant patterns, timing mechanism fragments, says suspicious death, recommends criminal investigation. Then 3 days later, the revised report calls it accidental. Case closed. Cole's jaw clenched hard enough to ache. He had the investigator killed or threatened. Probably threatened. Fire investigator still lives in Billings. Your daddy has his contact information noted here, with willing to testify if protected, written beside it. Frank set down the report. David built one hell of a case. Question is, what do we do with it? The three of them stood in the underground chamber, surrounded by evidence of corruption and murder, and the weight of it pressed down like the earth above them. This was enough to bring down Judge Whitehorse, enough to vindicate David Morrison's murder, enough to prove Elena wasn't crazy or vindictive, just a woman trying to protect her children from powerful men who thought they were above consequences. We move it somewhere safe first. Cole started stacking boxes. Frank, your place has security? Motion sensors, cameras, and a gun safe that survived a barn fire in 1998. Plus, I'm an old man nobody pays attention to. Frank grinned without humor. They don't suspect old men of anything except dying slow. They transferred everything to Frank's truck, made 3 trips, the children staying bundled in the bunkhouse with Ghost on guard. By noon, David Morrison's life's work and documentation sat in Frank Hewitt's basement, and the 3 adults gathered back at Cole's kitchen table to plan their next move. We need a federal prosecutor. Elena stated the obvious. Someone outside Whitehorse's reach. I know someone. Cole pulled out his phone. Marcus Webb, former teammate, now FBI Cybercrime Division. If anyone can navigate federal jurisdiction and find the right prosecutor, it's him. Can you trust him? Elena's question came from experience with men who claimed to help. With my life, have trusted him. Multiple times. Cole started dialing. He's the one who pulled me out of Kandahar when everything went to hell. Stayed with me through medical discharge and PTSD treatment. If I call, he comes. The phone rang 4 times before Marcus answered, voice thick with sleep. Cole Morrison, this better be life or death because it's 7 in the morning on my 1 day off. It's both. Cole put the phone on speaker. I need help. Federal jurisdiction level help. Static pause. Then Marcus's voice sharpened, shedding sleep. Talk to me. Cole gave him the outline. Elena's situation, Travis's journal, David Morrison's hidden evidence, Judge Whitehorse's corruption spanning 3 decades. Marcus listened without interrupting, which meant he was recording the call. Good. Documentation mattered. When Cole finished, Marcus exhaled long. Jesus, Cole. You pick up a family on the side of the road and stumble into a RICO case. That's very on brand for you. Can you help or not? Cole's patience had limits. Already running database searches. Give me 3 days. I'll coordinate with Helen in a field office. Find you a prosecutor who isn't bought. But Cole, Marcus's voice turned serious. Judge with this much power and money, he's not going down quiet. You need to prepare for blowback. Legal, probably. Maybe physical. I can handle physical. Cole glanced at Elena. What's the legal exposure? For you, minimal. You found evidence of your parents' murder. That's not a crime. For Elena, it's trickier. She missed a court date. Judge has custody order. State police have warrant for parental kidnapping. Marcus paused. I can file federal motion to stay state proceedings pending corruption investigation, but it'll take time. Meanwhile, they're looking for her. Elena's face went pale. How hard are they looking? Give me a second. Keys clicking in the background. Okay, I'm in Montana State Police database. There's an APP, but it's county level, not statewide. Whitehorse is keeping it quiet. Probably doesn't want media attention. More clicking. Wait, he posted a reward, private reward, $25,000 for information leading to recovery of Elena Whitehorse and 5 children. Contact Judge Whitehorse directly, not police. He's crowdsourcing the manhunt. Frank's voice went flat. Smart. Gets locals looking without involving authorities who might ask questions. Elena stood abruptly, moved to the window. Someone will see us. Someone always sees. Not out here, they don't. Frank spoke with certainty. Nearest neighbor besides me is 12 miles south. Cole's property doesn't front the main road, and I haven't seen a damn thing worth reporting. He met Elena's eyes. I knew your husband, knew what kind of man he was. Everyone did. We just didn't stop it, and that's on us. So now I'm stopping it. You're safe here long as you need to be. Elena's throat worked, fighting tears she wouldn't shed in front of her children. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when Whitehorse is in a federal cell. Frank turned back to the phone. Marcus, what's your timeline? 72 hours to coordinate prosecution. Another week to file charges and execute warrants. But, Marcus hesitated. Whitehorse will hear about federal investigation before warrants execute. Man that connected has sources everywhere. Once he knows, he'll move to secure the kids. Legal or not. Then we prepare for that. Cole's tactical mind engaged. Frank, can you take the children for a few hours tomorrow? Somewhere off property? My place. They can meet my horses. Kids love horses. Frank understood immediately. You're making this place defensible. Weapon positions, sight lines, fallback routes, standard SEAL prep. Cole looked at Elena. I know you don't want the kids exposed to this, but preparation prevents panic, and I'd rather over-prepare than bury another family. The bluntness made Elena flinch, but she nodded. Do what you need to do. Marcus cleared his throat over the phone. Cole, I'm flying out tomorrow. Be there by evening. We'll coordinate strategy in person. Copy that. Thanks, brother. Cole ended the call, felt the familiar pre-mission focus settling into his bones. Clear objectives, defined timelines, concrete actions. This was territory he understood, even if the mission parameters looked different than Kandahar. The afternoon passed in motion. Frank left to secure the evidence and prepare his ranch for temporary child residence. Cole and Elena sorted through David Morrison's documents, photographing everything as backup. The children played in the snow with Ghost, their laughter strange against the gravity of adult planning happening inside. Evening came fast, winter darkness at 4:30, and Cole was finishing dinner prep when Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway with an expression that made his stomach clench. There's a car on the road. Stopped at the end of our driveway. Man with binoculars looking at the house. Her voice stayed calm, despite the fear in her eyes. Cole moved to the window, careful not to silhouette himself. A sedan, dark blue, idling 300 yards away. Man in the driver's seat, professional camera with telephoto lens. Not looking at the bunkhouse. Looking at the property, taking notes, mapping terrain. Private investigator. Cole kept his voice neutral. Probably working for your grandfather. What do we do? Elena appeared beside him, one hand on Lily's shoulder. Nothing right now. He's on public road. Can't stop him from looking. Cole calculated options. But he knows we're here now. Tomorrow he'll probably try to approach, or he'll call in reinforcements. Should we run? Elena's question held no hope. Running just delays the inevitable. We stand and fight, but legally. Cole pulled the curtains closed. Marcus arrives tomorrow evening. We hold position until then. That night, after the children were settled, Cole found himself in the workshop again, unable to sleep. His hands moved automatically, breaking down his rifle, cleaning it, reassembling it. Muscle memory from 1,000 midnight weapon checks. The Remington 700 was legal, registered, and capable of 600-yard precision. Montana hunting rifle. Nothing illegal about maintaining it. The workshop door opened without knocking. Elena stood there wrapped in one of his jackets, face half shadow in the dim light. Can't sleep either? Never could after mission brief. Cole set down the rifle, gesture for her to enter. Brain runs scenarios, looking for failure points. Find any? She moved to the workbench, leaned against it beside him. Dozen, but most are manageable. Cole studied her profile. You holding up? Define holding up. Elena's laugh held no humor. My children are in danger. Powerful men want to take them. We're hiding on a stranger's ranch with evidence that could destroy those men if it doesn't destroy us first. I feel like I'm one bad moment from shattering. But you haven't shattered yet. That counts. Cole's voice went quiet. I've seen people break under less. You're stronger than you think. Or more stubborn. My grandmother used to say I inherited the white horse stubbornness. Elena touched the rifle barrel, careful. Travis had it too. Wouldn't bend, wouldn't listen. His stubbornness looked like strength until it became cruelty. There's a difference between stubbornness and resilience. Cole turned to face her fully. Stubbornness is refusing to change even when change is necessary. Resilience is bending without breaking, adapting to survive. You're resilient. He was stubborn. Elena met his eyes and something passed between them that had weight. Recognition, connection. The understanding that came from walking parallel paths through different versions of hell. You don't talk about Afghanistan? Marcus mentioned Kandahar on the phone. Cole's jaw tightened. Not much to say. Liar. Elena's voice came gentle. You've got the same look Travis had after Iraq. Like part of you is still there, still fighting. Maybe. Cole picked up a cleaning cloth, focused on something besides her face. Last mission, extraction of local translator and his family. Taliban advancing. We got them to the helicopter, but there was an IED. Translator's wife and youngest daughter didn't make it. I was medic. I tried. His voice caught. I tried to stop the bleeding, but there wasn't enough time. She was 6 years old. She held my hand while she died. Lena's hand found his, warm and solid. It wasn't your fault. Doesn't stop the dreams. Doesn't stop the guilt. Cole looked down at their joined hands. That's why I stopped on the highway. When I saw your kids, saw Jackson collapse. Something in me said not again. Not on my watch, not this time. So we're both running from ghosts. Elena's thumb traced circles on his palm, unconscious comfort. You from the children you couldn't save. Me from the man I couldn't fix. Maybe we stop running. Cole's voice came out rougher than intended. Maybe we stand here and fight for the ones we can save. Elena looked up at him, close enough now that he could see gold flecks in her dark eyes. Is that what this is? Fighting for redemption? No, it's fighting for what's right. Redemption's just what happens when you finally win one. Cole realized they were standing too close, that the air between them had charged with something neither was ready to name. He pulled back, broke contact. You should get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long. Elena studied him for a moment longer, reading things he wasn't saying. Cole Morrison, man who saves strangers and builds cribs and cleans weapons at midnight. Her voice softened. Thank you for everything, for giving us a chance. You don't need to thank me. Cole busied himself putting away cleaning supplies. Just help me keep those kids safe. That's thanks enough. She left without another word, and Cole stood alone in the workshop, wondering when protective instinct had crossed into something more complicated. Didn't matter. Couldn't matter. Mission first. Personal feelings were just distractions that got people killed. But standing there in the cold workshop, he could still feel the warmth of her hand in his. And that warmth felt like the first thaw after brutal winter. Marcus Webb arrived at 7 p.m. the next evening, driving a rental SUV and carrying enough legal documents to start a small fire. He was exactly as Cole remembered. 6 feet of controlled energy, dark skin, and darker eyes that missed nothing. Smile that could disarm hostile forces or charm federal judges. Cole Morrison. Marcus grabbed him in a bear hug that tested ribs. You look terrible. Mountain living doesn't agree with you. Says the man who chose a desk job. Cole returned the embrace, felt brotherhood in it. Cybercrime pays better and has fewer bullets. Marcus stepped back, looked past Cole to where Elena stood with her children. Mrs. Whitehorse. Children. I'm Marcus Webb, FBI. I'm here to help. Elena's shoulders relaxed fractionally at the badge Marcus showed. Thank you for coming. Thank Cole. He called in a favor and I owe him about 100. Marcus moved to the kitchen table, started spreading documents. All right, good news and bad news. Which first? Bad news, always. Cole prepared for impact. Judge Whitehorse filed emergency custody motion in state court. Hearing was held in absentia since you didn't appear. He got temporary custody of all 5 children, effective immediately. State police have warrant for your arrest on parental kidnapping charges. Marcus looked at Elena with sympathy. You're officially a fugitive. Elena's face drained of color. Cole's hand moved to her shoulder, steadying. Good news, Cole prompted. I filed federal complaint with Montana Attorney General and FBI Helena Field Office. Brought preliminary evidence of land fraud, judicial corruption, possible homicide. They're opening investigation. Federal investigation supersedes state proceedings. Marcus pulled out another document. I also filed motion to recuse Judge Whitehorse from all related cases. Conflict of interest. He's fighting it, but he'll lose. Timeline? Cole's tactical mind worked the problem. Federal investigation takes 6 months minimum. Maybe a year. Marcus saw their faces. I know, that's too long. So I pushed for emergency hearing in federal court. Helena District, 3 days from now. We present evidence of corruption, request protective custody for the children under federal jurisdiction pending full investigation. Will it work? Elena's voice barely made it past her throat. 60-40 odds. Judge Whitehorse has resources, connections, but federal judges don't like local corruption making them look bad. And your husband's journal, plus David Morrison's evidence? That's compelling. Marcus looked at Cole. You need a good custody lawyer. I found one, Sarah Chen, civil rights attorney out of Seattle. She's flying in tomorrow. What's this going to cost? Elena asked the question that had been weighing on her. Nothing. Chen takes cases pro bono when federal government has an interest. And Cole's paying my travel expenses, right, Cole? Marcus grinned. Put it on my tab with the other 100 favors. Cole managed half a smile. There's one more thing. Marcus's expression sobered. Judge Whitehorse hired a private investigator, Victor Kane, former cop, fired for excessive force, dangerous man. He's been canvassing the area asking questions. Somebody's going to talk eventually. When they do, Kane will come here. Let him. Cole's voice went cold. This is my property. Montana Castle doctrine applies. Don't get yourself arrested for shooting someone, Cole. That helps no one. Marcus pulled up a photo on his tablet. Kane's file, 6'3", 220, military background. Army MP, dishonorable discharge. Multiple assault charges, all dismissed. Works for whoever pays most. Cole studied the face. Hard eyes, military posture, the look of someone who enjoyed violence. When he comes, I'll be ready. He might not come alone. Marcus packed up his documents. Whitehorse is desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. The next day passed in preparation. Sarah Chen arrived by noon, sharp-eyed and fierce, immediately drilling Elena on her testimony. They practiced for hours, Chen playing aggressive prosecutor, attacking every vulnerability. Why didn't you leave sooner? Why didn't you fight for custody through proper channels? Aren't you just using Cole Morrison for protection? Elena broke down twice. Cole and Marcus gave her space, let her rebuild. By evening, she could answer the brutal questions without crying. Progress. Frank took the children to his ranch for the day, teaching Jackson basic carpentry, while Lily learned to ride horses and the younger ones played with barn cats. Normal activities for children who'd known too little normal. Cole used the time to prepare the property. Weapon positions, sight lines, emergency routes. He didn't expect Kane to attack directly, too obvious. But preparation prevented panic. Marcus helped, drawing on his own tactical training, and by sunset they'd turned Morrison Ranch into a defendable position without it looking like a fortress. That night, motion sensors triggered at 11 p.m. Cole was awake immediately, weapon in hand, moving to the window. Vehicle approaching, lights off, rolling slow up the private drive. Not Frank's Chevy, not Marcus's rental. Sedan, dark blue. "Marcus," Cole's voice carried through the bunkhouse. "We've got company." Marcus appeared, armed, professional. They watched the sedan stop 200 yards out, close enough to see the property, far enough to claim he wasn't trespassing. Door open, man got out, 6'3", military bearing, carrying what looked like a camera, but moved like someone who knew weapons. Victor Kane. Cole's grip tightened on his rifle. Through the scope, he could see Kane's face clearly. The man was cataloging everything: buildings, vehicles, sight lines, professional reconnaissance. This wasn't attempt at recovery. This was mapping for future assault. "He's running surveillance," Marcus spoke from experience. "Getting ready for extraction attempt." "When?" Cole tracked Kane's movements. "Tomorrow, maybe next day, before federal hearing." Marcus moved to phone. "I'm calling Helena office. Get federal marshals out here. They won't make it in time." Cole watched Kane take photos, notes. "We need to move Elena and kids somewhere safer." "Frank's Ranch?" Marcus suggested. "First place Kane will check once he maps this property." Cole thought fast. "We need somewhere unexpected. Somewhere Whitehorse won't think to look." "The reservation." Elena's voice came from the stairs. She'd been listening. "My grandmother's house on Standing Rock. Community will protect us." "That's 40 miles from here. We'd have to move at night. Hope Kane doesn't have counter surveillance." Cole calculated odds. "Risky. Everything's risky, but my people won't betray me to Whitehorse." Elena's voice held certainty. "They know what his son did, what his family represents." And Kane climbed back into his sedan, drove away slowly, marking his exit route. Cole lowered the rifle, decision crystallizing. "We move tomorrow morning. First light. Marcus, you and Sarah escort Elena and kids to the reservation. I stay here, make it look like normal activity. Draw Kane's attention." "You're making yourself bait." Marcus didn't phrase it as question. "I'm making myself target. There's a difference of eyes." Cole met his friend's eyes. "Kane comes for me. He's not looking for Elena. And I can handle Kane." "Cole," Elena started, "no arguments. Your job is staying free until federal hearing. My job is making sure Kane doesn't stop you." Cole's voice left no room for negotiation. "Frank will come with me, add witnesses, 2 armed property owners defending their land against trespasser. That's legal. Anything Kane tries becomes his problem." Marcus studied Cole for a long moment, reading the determination there. "You sure about this?" "I've run worse ops with worse odds." Cole checked his weapon again. "We hold for 72 hours. Then federal hearing happens. Then Elena gets her children back legally, and Judge Whitehorse gets consequences." "And if Kane comes before then?" Elena's question held fear, not for herself, for him. Cole looked at her, let her see the cold certainty in his eyes. "Then Kane learns that Navy SEALs don't lose on home ground. Ever." The night passed in tense preparation. Dawn came gray and cold, and they loaded Elena's children into Marcus's SUV under the cover of Frank's barn. Ghost went with them, protection and comfort combined. Elena stood by the vehicle, looking back at Cole with expression that mixed gratitude and something deeper. "Come back safe." Her words came quiet. "That's the plan." Cole touched her shoulder briefly. 3 days, then this is over." "Promise?" "Well." Cole thought about all the promises he'd made that circumstances had broken. Thought about the translator's daughter and his parents, and every person he'd failed to save despite best efforts. Thought about how easy it was to promise and how hard to deliver. "I promise to try. That's the best anyone can offer." The honesty sat between them like a vow. "Now go, stay safe, let Marcus handle the legal fight." Elena climbed into the SUV. Marcus drove away, taking with him the most important elements of Cole's current mission. Frank stayed, weathered and solid, rifle across his knees. So, the old man's voice carried dry humor. We're bait. We're defenders. There's a difference, Chief. Cole moved to the workshop, started checking ammunition supplies. Son, I've been bait before. Vietnam, tunnel rat operations. Know what I learned? Frank followed him in. Bait either catches the predator or becomes the meal. No in between. Then we better be ready to catch. Cole loaded magazines, checked scopes, prepared for war the way he'd done 100 times in worse places. Victor Kane came at sunset, and he didn't come alone. Two black SUVs rolled up Morrison Ranch's private drive at 6:47 p.m., headlights cutting through dusk like search beams. Victor Kane stepped from the lead vehicle, flanked by three men who moved with the particular confidence of people comfortable with violence. Cole watched from the workshop window, rifle already positioned, Frank beside him with his Winchester. 4 against 2. Frank's voice stayed calm. I've had worse odds. They're not military, just hired muscle. Cole tracked movements through his scope. Kane's the only real threat. Kane approached the bunkhouse door, knocked like this was social call. His voice carried across the frozen yard, professionally cordial. Mr. Morrison, Victor Kane, private investigator, need to speak with you about a custody matter. Cole stepped onto the porch, weapon visible but lowered. Montana open carry, nothing illegal about armed property owner. You're trespassing, leave. Just need 5 minutes of your time. Kane's smile didn't reach his eyes. Judge Whitehorse sent me to recover his grandchildren. Legal custody order. I can show you the paperwork. Show the sheriff. He's on his way. Cole's bluff came smooth. He'd called the clean sheriff from the next county 20 minutes ago when motion sensors first triggered. Until then, you're on private property without permission. Montana law is pretty clear about that. Kane's smile vanished. He gestured and his 3 associates fanned out, moving to flank the bunkhouse. Tactical positions. These men had training, even if not military grade. Mr. Morrison, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Kane's hand moved toward his waist. Those children are legally my client's property. You're harboring fugitives. That makes you complicit in... Frank's Winchester cracked the air, bullet hitting dirt 6 inches from Kane's boot. Everyone froze. The old man worked the lever action, chambered another round. Next one goes center mass. Trespassing's one thing, threatening's another. And I got witnesses plus security cameras recording all this. Kane's eyes went flat, dangerous. You just assaulted me. I shot dirt. Assault requires intent to harm. I intended to warn. Frank's voice carried the authority of someone who'd survived 7 decades of Montana winters and human stupidity. Now you got 2 choices. Leave peaceful or leave bleeding. Either way, you're leaving. Sirens sounded in the distance. Kane heard them, calculated odds, gestured to his men. They retreated to vehicles, but Kane lingered, staring at Cole with expression that promised this wasn't finished. Tell Elena Whitehorse she can't hide forever. Tell her Judge Whitehorse always collects what's his. Kane climbed into his SUV. And Mr. Morrison, you're making powerful enemies. That has consequences. I've had worse enemies. They didn't end well. Cole kept his weapon ready until both SUVs departed. Sheriff Tom Reeves arrived 10 minutes later, county sheriff from Jackson County, jurisdiction just far enough removed that Whitehorse's influence thinned. He took statements, reviewed Frank's security footage, and arrested no one because technically Cole and Frank had defended their property legally. Kane's got connections, Sheriff Reeves warned as he prepared to leave. He'll push for charges. Reckless endangerment, assault with deadly weapon. Probably won't stick, but he'll make noise. Let him. Cole's jaw set hard. I've got federal investigators interested in bigger crimes than property defense. Yeah, heard rumors about that. Reeves studied Cole with respect. Your daddy was good man. If you're going after the people who killed him, you got my support. Unofficial but solid. After the sheriff left, Cole and Frank stood in the cold yard, adrenaline fading, reality settling. The property was compromised. Kane knew the layout now. He'd be back with different strategy, maybe legal warrant, maybe just overwhelming force. You need to relocate too. Frank spoke what Cole was already thinking. Can't defend here alone. Safe house. Cole pulled out his phone, texted Marcus. FBI probably has one nearby. We hunker down until federal hearing. Marcus responded within minutes. Address in Helena, 2 hours north. Government property. Secure. Protected. Cole packed essentials, loaded his truck, and locked the bunkhouse knowing he might not see it again for weeks. The burned house loomed against starlight, monument to his parents and everything Whitehorse had destroyed. We're ending this. Cole's words came to Frank, but also to the frozen night, to the ghosts of David and Rebecca Morrison, to the land itself. 3 more days, then justice. Helena's safe house was concrete and suspicion, government-issue furniture, and security cameras in every corner. Marcus met Cole at the door, expression grim. Kane filed complaint, says you and Frank threatened him with deadly force, prevented legal execution of custody order. We defended our property from armed trespassers. Cole set down his gear. I know. Sheriff Reeves sent his report to federal prosecutors. Supports your version, but Kane's story is out there now, and Whitehorse's lawyers will use it. Marcus gestured inside. Elena and kids are in back bedrooms. They're safe but scared. Sarah Chen's prepping Elena for tomorrow's hearing. The safe house had the institutional smell of places designed for function over comfort. Elena emerged from one of the bedrooms, relief flooding her face when she saw Cole, followed immediately by guilt for caring. You're okay. Her hand reached out, stopped short of touching him. Frank's a good shot, and Kane's smart enough to recognize when he's outgunned. Cole wanted to pull her close, reassure with contact, but Marcus was watching and the children were present, and this wasn't the time. How's Jackson? Nightmares. Keeps asking if the bad men found us. Elena's voice cracked. I keep lying, telling him we're safe. You're not lying. We are safe. For now. Cole crouched to where Jackson sat on a couch, small and afraid. Hey, buddy, remember what I taught you about tactics? Jackson nodded, solemn. Good guys sometimes have to retreat to win the bigger battle. That's what we're doing. Retreating to this fortress so we can fight the real battle in court tomorrow. Cole kept his voice steady, confident. Your mom's going to tell her story to a federal judge, and that judge is going to make sure you stay with her, understand? What if the judge doesn't believe her? Jackson's question cut deep. Then we appeal, and we keep fighting until someone listens. Cole met the boy's eyes. I promise you this, I will not let them take you. Not while I'm alive, to prevent it. The words hung heavy, oath-like. Elena's breath caught. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. And Jackson, 7 years old and already too familiar with broken promises, searched Cole's face for truth. Whatever he found there must have satisfied him because he nodded, leaned against Ghost who'd positioned himself beside the boy, and closed his eyes. Sleep or something close to it. Sarah Chen worked Elena until midnight, drilling testimony, preparing for every attack Whitehorse's lawyers would launch. Cole watched from the kitchen, impressed by Chen's thoroughness and Elena's strengthening resolve. Each time Chen broke her with a brutal question, Elena rebuilt faster, answers sharper. Why didn't you leave your husband sooner? Chen's voice held no sympathy, pure prosecutor aggression. Because leaving meant losing my children through custody courts his father controlled. Staying meant we all suffered, but stayed together. I chose together. Elena's voice didn't waver. When I finally had evidence, his father was criminal. Not just my husband, I ran. Better to be fugitive than dead. Didn't you abandon your responsibilities? Miss court dates? Act like unstable person? I acted like a mother protecting her children from powerful men who'd already killed one family. If that makes me unstable, so be it. Elena's eyes blazed. But my children are alive. I'm alive. And tomorrow I'm going to make sure we stay that way. Chen sat back, smiled for the first time all day. That's the energy. Hold that. When they attack tomorrow, remember, you are not defending yourself. You're fighting for your kids. Judges respond to protective mothers, especially federal judges who hate local corruption. They broke at 1 a.m. Cole found Elena on the safe house's small porch, wrapped in a blanket despite the cold, staring at Helena's distant lights. Couldn't sleep? He joined her, kept respectful distance. Every time I close my eyes, I see tomorrow going wrong. Judge believing white horses lies, children taken, me in handcuffs. Elena's voice shook. What if we lose? Then we appeal to Ninth Circuit, then Supreme Court if necessary. Rich men like Whitehorse think money buys invincibility, but federal system has checks they can't buy. Cole believed it because he had to. Your husband's journal, my father's evidence. That's not nothing. That's everything. Cole Morrison, the optimist, didn't expect that from a SEAL with PTSD. Elena's attempt at humor fell flat. I'm not optimistic. I'm realistic. I've seen impossible missions succeed and easy ones fail. Variables matter less than determination. He turned to face her. And you're the most determined person I've met. That counts more than Whitehorse's money. Elena looked at him, really looked, and something shifted in her expression. When this is over, if we win, what happens to us? What do you want to happen? Cole's pulse kicked up. I don't know. 6 weeks ago, I was running through a blizzard expecting to die. Now I'm in a safe house with a man who saved my life, preparing to fight for my children in federal court. I can't think past tomorrow. Her hand found his, but I know I don't want to walk away and never see you again. Cole's throat tightened. Then we figure it out. After tomorrow, after the dust settles, we figure out what this is. He squeezed her hand, but first we win. Everything else is just noise. Federal courthouse in Helena rose granite and justice, steps leading to massive doors that promise law's protection. Cole had been in federal buildings before. Military tribunals, medal ceremonies, medical discharge processing, but never as a defendant in anything. Today he was witness, character reference, the man whose parents' murder had started this cascade. They entered through security, metal detectors, and stern-faced marshals who checked identification and reviewed the day's docket. United States District Court, District of Montana. Judge Patricia Hendricks presiding. Emergency custody hearing, Elena Whitehorse versus Robert Whitehorse, with federal corruption investigation pending. Courtroom 3 held maybe 50 people when full. Today it held twice that, media crammed into back rows, Whitehorse's legal team occupying entire defense table, and Elena with Sarah Chen looking small but fierce at plaintiff's table. Cole sat in the gallery behind Elena, close enough to provide support, far enough not to crowd. Judge Hendricks entered at 9 a.m. sharp, late 50s, gray-streaked hair pulled severe, expression that suggested she'd seen every lie lawyers could manufacture. She reviewed preliminary motions in silence, then spoke with voice that carried authority. This court will hear arguments regarding emergency custody of 5 minor children currently under care of their mother, Mrs. Elena Whitehorse, with temporary state custody granted to paternal grandparents Robert and Catherine Whitehorse. Federal jurisdiction invoked due to pending corruption investigation into Judge Robert Whitehorse's conduct. Counselors, proceed. Whitehorse's lead attorney stood, expensive suit and calculated sympathy. Your Honor, this is simple case of concerned grandparents attempting to protect vulnerable children from unstable mother. Mrs. Whitehorse has history of mental health issues, missed its scheduled custody hearing, and is currently cohabiting with unstable military veteran. The children deserve stable, loving home their grandparents can provide. Sarah Chen rose, controlled fury. Your Honor, this is case of powerful family attempting to silence witness to their criminal conduct. Mrs. Whitehorse has no mental health issues beyond depression diagnosis following years of spousal abuse her late husband's family enabled. She missed custody hearing because she fled for her life with evidence of land fraud and possible homicide conspiracy, and she's not cohabiting with anyone. She's receiving temporary sanctuary while federal investigation proceeds. Judge Hendricks made notes, expression neutral. I've reviewed preliminary evidence filed with federal investigation. It's compelling but not conclusive. This hearing will focus narrowly on custody. Mr. Chen, call your first witness. Mrs. Elena Whitehorse. Sarah gestured and Elena took the stand, was sworn in, sat with spine straight and hands folded. She looked terrified but determined, and Cole willed strength toward her across the courtroom. Sarah led her through testimony methodically. Years of marriage to Travis, escalating abuse, failed police reports that disappeared, Travis's journal documenting his father's criminal activities, the decision to flee rather than surrender children to family that had protected abuser. Why didn't you trust the legal system? Sarah's question came gentle. Because Judge Whitehorse controlled the legal system in 3 counties. Because I called police 4 times and no reports were filed. Because I knew if I showed up to that custody hearing, I'd lose my children to the same family that enabled my husband's violence. Elena's voice strengthened as she spoke. I chose to be fugitive rather than complicit mother. If that makes me unfit, I accept that judgment, but I will not apologize for protecting my children. Cross-examination began, and Whitehorse's attorney attacked immediately. Mrs. Whitehorse, you admit to violating court order? I admit to choosing my children's safety over legal proceedings controlled by corrupt judge. Elena didn't flinch. You're calling Judge Whitehorse corrupt based on your interpretation of your late husband's journal? I'm calling him corrupt based on documented evidence of land fraud, arson, and conspiracy to commit murder. Elena held firm. Evidence federal prosecutors find compelling enough to open investigation. Yet you're not a lawyer, not an investigator, just a woman with diagnosed depression running from consequences. The attorney's sneer carried obvious contempt. Objection. Sarah stood. Counsel is badgering witness. Sustained. Judge Hendricks fixed the attorney with hard stare. Next question. They pushed Elena for 90 minutes, attacking every vulnerability, but she'd been prepared. Each assault made her stronger, more certain, until even Whitehorse's attorney seemed frustrated by her resilience. Cole testified next, character witness, explaining how he'd found Elena and her children on the highway, provided emergency shelter, discovered connection between his parents' deaths and Whitehorse's land scheme. Cross-examination attempted to paint him as unstable veteran with savior complex, preying on vulnerable woman. Mr. Morrison, you have PTSD diagnosis, correct? Whitehorse's attorney attacked with obvious relish. Yes, service-connected disability from combat deployments. Cole kept his voice level. You've experienced violent episodes? I've experienced flashbacks, never acted violently towards civilians. Cole met the attorney's eyes, let him see the seal underneath the trauma. I'm trained to protect people, not harm them. Yet you threatened my client's investigator with deadly force? I defended my property from armed trespassers who refused to leave when asked. Montana law permits that. Sheriff Reeves's report confirms it. Cole's jaw set. Your client's investigator brought 3 armed men to my property at dusk, attempted intimidation, and left when confronted with legitimate defense. That's not my instability. That's his aggression. The attorney tried several more angles, but Cole's military bearing and calm responses deflated each attack. When he stepped down, Judge Hendricks called lunch recess. They reconvened at 1 p.m. Whitehorse's team called character witnesses, wealthy community members who testified to Judge and Mrs. Whitehorse's standing, their charitable work, their concern for grandchildren. Paint picture of perfect grandparents maligned by ungrateful daughter-in-law. The testimony rang hollow against Elena's documented evidence, but it filled time and created doubt. Then Whitehorse's attorney played his card. Your Honor, we request permission for emergency home visit to property where Mrs. Whitehorse and children have been staying. Court-appointed social workers should evaluate living conditions before making custody determination. Judge Hendricks frowned. Mrs. Whitehorse is currently in federal safe house pending this hearing. Prior to safe house, she stayed at Mr. Morrison's ranch. That's the environment these children were subjected to. The attorney produced photographs. Cole's bunkhouse, modest and rough. The burned main house, stark and haunting. We believe examination of this location will demonstrate inadequate living conditions for 5 minor children. Sarah Chen objected immediately. This is transparent attempt to delay proceedings and manufacture evidence. Mrs. Whitehorse provided safe, warm shelter for her children. Nothing more required. But Judge Hendricks allowed it, ordered social worker inspection for following morning with both parties present. Court would reconvene that afternoon to hear social worker's report and render decision. Marcus met them outside the courthouse, expression dark. They're planning something. Home inspection gives them access to the property, time to plant evidence, create narrative of instability. Then we make sure the inspection is clean. Frank and I already secured anything that could be misinterpreted. Cole's mind worked the problem tactically. What can they realistically plan? Anything. Drugs, weapons, alcohol, unsafe conditions. Sarah Chen joined them, voice tight. Social workers look for specific markers of instability, substance abuse, hoarding, dangerous environments. If they find those markers, even planted, it damages Elena's credibility. So we watch them every second, document everything with video. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'll coordinate with FBI field office. Get agents present as observers. That night in the safe house, Elena couldn't stop shaking. Cole found her at 3 a.m., sitting on the floor of the bathroom, arms wrapped around her knees, fighting panic attack. They're going to take them. Her words came between gasps. I can feel it. Tomorrow they'll find something, plant something, and the judge will rule against me. Cole sat beside her on the cold tile, kept his voice calm. Look at me, Elena, look at me. She turned tear-streaked face toward him. You are not fighting alone anymore. You have Sarah. You have Marcus. You have me. We're watching every move they make. They try to plant evidence. We catch them. They try to lie. We counter with truth. He took her hand, grounded her with touch. And if somehow they win tomorrow, we appeal. And we keep fighting until we win or there's no fight left. But we do not surrender, understand? Elena's breathing gradually slowed. Why are you doing this? Really? You could have left us on that highway. Could have called police and been done with it. Why risk everything? Cole thought about Kabul and the translator's daughter and his parents' burned house and all the ways he'd been too late to save people who mattered. Thought about finding purpose in the wreckage of his own trauma. Because some winters are just the earth sleeping, he said quietly. But some winters are the earth gathering strength for spring. And I'm tired of winter. Morning came too fast. They drove in convoy to Morrison Ranch, 2 FBI agents leading, social worker Miss Rodriguez in her county vehicle, White Horse's attorney following with private investigator Kane. The burned house looked particularly desolate in morning light, and Cole saw the way Ms. Rodriguez's face tightened seeing it. Let's start with the bunkhouse. Ms. Rodriguez consulted her checklist, professional and neutral. They entered together, crowded space made more so by 8 adults conducting inspection. Ms. Rodriguez photographed everything: the sleeping arrangements, the kitchen, the bathroom facilities, the wood stove, the children's few belongings. She tested smoke detectors, checked for mold, examined food storage. Everything passed. The children's bedrooms? Ms. Rodriguez moved toward the back. They followed. 2 bedrooms, modest but clean, blankets folded, Emma's borrowed crib sturdy in corner. Ms. Rodriguez took photos, made notes, moved to Cole's workshop bedroom. This was his space, hadn't been used by Elena or children, but she inspected anyway. Kane followed her in, positioning himself near Cole's dresser while Ms. Rodriguez examined the bed, the simple furnishings, the lack of clutter. While she turned to photograph the window, Kane's hand moved, quick, practiced, dropping something behind the dresser. Cole saw it. Marcus saw it. The FBI agents saw it. Stop right there. Marcus's voice cracked like thunder. Step away from that dresser, Kane. Ms. Rodriguez spun around. Kane froze, expression calculating innocence. I was just steadying myself. This room's crowded. FBI agents, document what Mr. Kane just dropped behind that furniture. Marcus gestured to the agents who moved immediately. They pulled the dresser from the wall, revealed 3 bottles. Vodka, whiskey, bourbon. Still sealed, labels pristine, clearly planted. What's this? Ms. Rodriguez's face hardened. Plant. Cole kept his voice cold. Oh, damn, I don't drink. Haven't touched alcohol in 8 months. PTSD medication interacts dangerously with alcohol. My VA psychiatrist has documentation. White Horse's attorney protested. This is absurd. You can't prove Mr. Kane planted anything. Those bottles could have been there previously. Except I have video. Frank's voice came from the doorway. He held up his phone, security camera footage showing Kane's hand movement. Caught him red-handed. Want to explain that to the judge, counselor? The room went silent except for Ms. Rodriguez's pen scratching notes. When she finished, she looked at Whitehorse's attorney with contempt normally reserved for child abusers. I'm noting in my report that evidence of substance abuse was planted during inspection by party seeking custody. I'm also noting that living conditions are adequate, children were well cared for, and Mrs. Whitehorse made reasonable decisions given her circumstances. She turned to Elena. You did good, Mama. Real good. Elena's knees buckled with relief. Cole caught her elbow, steadied her, and felt her hand grip his with desperate strength. Back at the courthouse that afternoon, Ms. Rodriguez delivered her report directly to Judge Hendricks. The judge read in silence, expression darkening, then looked up at Whitehorse's attorney with judicial fury. Counselor, your investigator attempted to plant evidence during court-ordered inspection. This behavior demonstrates exactly the kind of corruption federal prosecutors are investigating. It also tells me everything I need to know about your client's character. Judge Hendricks's voice could have frozen magma. Here's my ruling. The courtroom held collective breath. Full custody is returned to Mrs. Elena Whitehorse, effective immediately. Judge Robert Whitehorse and Catherine Whitehorse are prohibited from contact with the minor children pending outcome of federal investigation. Furthermore, I am issuing protective order. The Whitehorse family and their associates may not approach Mrs. Whitehorse or her children, may not contact them, and may not come within 500 feet of Morrison Ranch or any property where they reside. Whitehorse's attorney tried to object, but Judge Hendricks cut him off. I'm not finished. Given evidence presented of land fraud, judicial corruption, and possible homicide conspiracy, I am expanding federal investigation to include Judge Whitehorse's entire career. U.S. Marshals will ensure compliance with this court's order. And counselor? She fixed the attorney with a look that promised consequences. If you or your client attempt any further intimidation, I will hold you in contempt and refer you to the bar for disciplinary action. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor. The attorney deflated completely. Mrs. Whitehorse, your children will be returned to you today. The court apologizes for the trauma this family has endured and commends your courage in standing against corruption. Judge Hendricks struck her gavel. This hearing is concluded. The courtroom erupted. Media surged forward, questions shouting. Elena collapsed into Sarah Chen's arms, sobbing with relief and exhaustion. Marcus grabbed Cole in victory embrace. And through it all, Cole watched Judge Whitehorse's face cycle from fury to calculation to the particular fear of powerful men realizing their power had limits. They retrieved the children from temporary foster care that evening, 5 small bodies launching themselves at Elena with force that nearly knocked her over. She held them all at once, impossible geometry of mother's arms, crying and laughing and promising over and over that it was done. They were safe. No one could take them again. Jackson looked up at Cole, solemn and certain. You kept your promise. Always will. Cole's throat closed around the words. Frank drove them back to Morrison Ranch as sunset painted the mountains gold. The burned house still stood skeletal against the sky, but somehow it looked less like ending now, more like midpoint between what was lost and what could be built. That night, after children were settled and exhausted sleep claimed Elena, Cole walked to the ruins. Frank joined him, 2 men standing before destruction that had shaped recent months. Your daddy would be proud. Frank's voice came quiet. He fought for this land his whole life. You finished what he started. Not finished yet. Investigations still ongoing. Trials will take years. Cole stared at blackened timber. But the hard part's done. The standing up. The refusing to break. Frank pulled an envelope from his jacket. He left this for you, asked me to give it after everything's settled. Figured tonight counts. Cole took the envelope, recognized his father's handwriting on the front, opened it with shaking hands. The letter inside was brief, characteristic of David Morrison's efficient communication. Son, if you're reading this, we're gone and you found the evidence. I'm sorry we couldn't tell you while deployed. The ranch isn't just family legacy. It's gold mine, literally. Worth enough to secure your future and help entire community. But more than that, it's proof that good people can stand against corruption and win. We fought because it was right. If you're reading this, you're continuing that fight. I'm proud of you. Always have been. Use the ranch to build something good. Help people the way you helped your teammates. That's what Morrisons do. Love, Dad. P.S. The gold's nice, but the water rights are actually more valuable. Whole valley depends on our wells. Never let developers control water. Cole read the letter twice, then folded it carefully, tucked it in his pocket next to his heart. His father had known they'd come for him, known his son would finish the fight, known that some battles were worth dying for because living without fighting them wasn't living at all. We rebuild. Cole's words came to Frank, but also to the land, to the ghosts, to the future waiting to be built. Main house, bigger, strong enough to hold family and community. Traditional construction, but modern safety. Something that honors the past while protecting the future. Going to need help with that. Frank's smile carried warmth. Good thing you got neighbors willing to work for fair wages and a stake in better world. 3 months later, foundation was poured for new Morrison House. Frank helped daily, teaching Jackson and Cole proper construction techniques, explaining why quality mattered more than speed. Elena established traditional medicine garden, combining Lakota healing knowledge with practical botany, providing remedies for community members who couldn't afford overpriced pharmaceuticals. The children thrived in ways that broke and healed Elena daily. Jackson's nightmares decreased. Lily smiled more. Sophie never stopped talking. Daniel lost his fear of men, and Emma grew into toddlerhood, surrounded by love. 6 months post-trial, Elena and Cole stood on the completed foundation, watching sunset turn the mountains purple. The main house's frame rose around them, skeleton that would become home. And for the first time since Travis's death, Elena felt something like peace. I need to visit my grandmother. Her voice came soft. Take the children to the reservation. Let the community meet the man who saved us. They might not approve. Cole kept his eyes on the mountains. White ex-SEAL with PTSD trying to court Lakota woman. Then they'll have to adjust their expectations. Elena took his hand. Because I'm in love with you, and I think you might be in love with me, and life's too short to pretend otherwise. Cole turned to face her, saw certainty in her eyes that matched what had been building in his chest for months. I am in love with you, have been since somewhere between the blizzard and the courtroom. Maybe before. So what do we do about it? Her challenge came gentle. We build something real, something that honors your culture and mine. Something that gives these kids a father who'll never raise a hand except to protect. Cole's voice roughened. If you'll have me, if your family will accept me, if... Elena kissed him, stopping words with action, and in that kiss was affirmation and promise, and the beginning of something neither had thought possible 6 months ago in a blizzard that had seemed like ending but was really beginning. Standing Rock Reservation welcomed them with cautious warmth. Elder Margaret Blackfeather studied Cole with eyes that had seen 8 decades of white promises and brown betrayals, reading character in the set of his shoulders and the way he deferred to Elena naturally. You stood with our daughter when powerful men tried to destroy her. Margaret's voice carried authority that transcended age. That makes you family. But understand, you marry Elena, you marry into Lakota community, you respect our traditions. You raise those children to know their heritage. You don't erase what Travis tried to erase. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Cole met her eyes without flinching. I'm not trying to replace anything. I'm trying to add something. Safety, stability, love that doesn't come with conditions or violence. If that means learning Lakota traditions and honoring Elena's culture, I consider that privilege, not burden. Margaret studied him longer, then nodded once. Then you have our blessing. But know this, we're watching. Mess this up, and you'll answer to more than just Elena. The wedding happened 8 months after the federal hearing. Traditional Lakota ceremony blended with Montana ranch traditions. Community gathered at Morrison Ranch, newly completed house providing backdrop. The structure rose 3 stories, combination of David Morrison's original design and Elena's cultural elements. Traditional Lakota symbols carved into support beams, star quilt pattern in the tile work, windows positioned to honor 4 directions. Elder Margaret officiated with Christian minister observing, blessing union of 2 people who'd found each other in storm and built something stronger than either could alone. Star quilt ceremony joined Cole and Elena beneath shared warmth, community forming circle around them. hands linked, ancient chants rising to meet Montana sky. Marcus stood as best man, grinning. Sarah Chen attended with her partner, fierce pride on both faces. Frank gave toasts that made everyone cry and laugh, and Ghost trotted around the circle with ribbon tied to his collar, unofficial four-legged witness to vows that promised forever. Jackson whispered to Cole during reception, "Are you our dad now?" Cole crouched to the boy's level, held his gaze. "I'm not your birth father. Can't replace him. Don't want to. But I promise to be father you deserve. One who protects instead of hurts. One who teaches instead of tears down. If you'll have me." Jackson's arms wrapped around Cole's neck, and the word came muffled against his shoulder. "Dad." One by one, the children gave permission. Even Daniel, once terrified of men, climbed into Cole's arms and whispered the word that changed everything. "Daddy." 18 months after the wedding, Morrison Ranch had transformed into something that honored both past and future. The main house stood complete and beautiful, blend of Montana granite and Lakota design. Elena's medicine garden supplied 3 counties with traditional remedies. Cole's small-scale gold mining operation, ethical, sustainable, provided income that funded community programs. They'd established Sanctuary Foundation, nonprofit helping abuse survivors find safe housing and legal support. Sarah Chen served as legal director. Marcus consulted on security. Frank taught practical skills to kids from reservation who needed trades training. The ranch that had nearly died now thrived as community center. Spring morning, Cole stood on the completed porch, watching his family. Elena nursed their son, David Frank Morrison, 6 months old, named for fallen fathers who'd made this possible. Jackson worked with Frank in the workshop, learning woodworking. Lily read on the porch swing, already talking about law school like Sarah Chen. Sophie wrote stories, determined to be author. Daniel played with the ghost, all fear erased. Emma toddled after chickens, laughing. "What are you thinking?" Elena moved beside him, baby in arms, hand finding his. "That I spent 12 years learning to survive. Took a blizzard and a widow with 5 kids to teach me how to live." Cole's voice carried wonder. "We taught each other." Elena leaned into him. True. They'd both been drowning when they'd met, clinging to wreckage, expecting nothing but more cold. Instead, they'd found each other at the precise moment when surrender would have been easiest, and they'd chosen to keep fighting. Together, they'd built something that honored the dead while protecting the living. In the distance, sun climbed over Morrison Valley, no longer threatened by corruption, now protected by family who'd fought for it. Ranch that nearly died now thrived. Proof that justice arrived when good people refused to surrender. That hope grew from the harshest winters. That family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was choice, made consciously and renewed daily. Some miracles arrived with thunder, with angels, with signs written across sky. But sometimes miracle looked like broken veteran stopping on frozen highway. Sometimes it looked like woman who refused to surrender children even when world demanded it. Sometimes it looked like discovered evidence arriving exactly when needed. Sometimes it looked like 2 shattered souls finding each other at instant. God decided they'd carried enough pain alone. Maybe that's the real lesson. We don't always understand why storms come. We don't always know why we lose people we love, or why road becomes so hard our knees nearly touch ground. But God places people in our path, sometimes in blizzards, sometimes in burned ruins, at right time and right season to remind us no winter lasts forever. Justice comes, truth emerges, love builds what hate tried to destroy, and those who stand against darkness, who refuse to break even when breaking seems easier, eventually find spring on the other side of winter. If life has been cold too long, hold on. Redemption doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks toward you slowly, gently, like hand reaching through snow. Sometimes it's person beside you, choosing to stay when everyone else left. Sometimes it's land that survives fire, children who survive trauma, love that survives everything meant to destroy it. Cole Morrison pulled his wife close, kissed his infant son's head, and watched his chosen children playing in sunlight that felt like benediction. The burned house's remains had been cleared last month, its stones repurposed in the new home's foundation. Nothing wasted, Everything transformed. Past feeding future, winter becoming spring, and two people who'd been too late to save their first families, standing together to protect the one they'd built from wreckage. Some stories end in tragedy, but some stories end in triumph that tastes like grace.